Hi everyone. So today I'm going to take you on a studio tour, which is one of my favorite things to do. I'm going to be going over my supplies, from paintbrushes to paints, to how I set up my palette, to what I use for tape, what I use for rags. This is not meant to be a syllabus check. When you have the syllabi from me for the various courses, you do kind of want to look those supplies over and use them as your checklist for the class. This is more of a real working studio overview, and you can kind of compare and contrast what materials you have, what materials that I have requested that you have, and then what it all kind of looks like when it's in action. So again, it's not you must do this or you must do that. It's let's just kind of compare and contrast supplies. And I want to give you, since I have the opportunity to film right from my working space, I want to give the opportunity for you to see what I do. I'm not gatekeeping. So basically this is how I approach my painting practice, and this is how I set it up on a day-to-day basis. So first off, I always have my apron on. I'm a little bit of an ad for Golden right here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna turn the camera around, and I'm gonna take you a bit on a walking tour of all my different stations, and get you a feel for what I have and what I do and how it compares to what supplies you already have, and then also what's gonna be on the syllabus. I think it's good too to see the physical material, because you can also say, well, she's asked for the blue painter's tape, but I think I'm gonna go ahead with masking tape. Or, I could get the disposable palette. I've already had a disposable palette, but I might opt for a glass one this time and kind of set it up that way. There's gonna be a difference between those of you who are having portable kits. So if you're in an intermediate class, you will be bringing your supplies with you, and that's gonna make a difference for basically how big of tubes of paint you buy, how you transport your brushes, your solvents, so on and so forth. And I'm gonna try to be as thorough as possible and go through all the variations as I go through the supplies. Again, this is a general instruction for all levels, so intermediate to advanced, face-to-face or asynchronous. So as I go through each thing, I'm going to try to talk about the variations and how they would apply to you, rather than make separate videos on this content. So this will it's kind of a broad umbrella, but as I go over each station, I'll talk about some of the specifics as they might pertain to you. Also, I'll talk about the variations between oil and acrylic and how that's gonna adjust your supply kit as well. Okay, so in just a moment, I will be turning the video around and start walking you through the studio. Okay, so to begin the studio tour and supply tour, I'm gonna start with my canvas corner. And what you're seeing here are all of the paintings that I worked on over time, various things for shows, really. This is my personal work. And there's a large range of sizes. So anywhere from medium, which is in the back there, and then these are the larger canvases around 68 to 70. If you're working in the classroom, you probably don't want to lug something this big around. If you're working at home, feel free. I've had students who've tacked large canvases to their garage door, their kitchen wall. So really sky's the limit as far as that's concerned, depending on how you're feeling. When I am demoing, I will be doing the smaller size canvases, things along those lines. And I do want to talk about the range of supports that you can use. So here we have something like a canvas board that has a gray ground. So sometimes I like a tonal ground, and I can talk about that more as the course goes on. These are pre-made Blick, just little squares. They're kind of very affordable, very convenient. They're kind of nice for small studies. Again, small squares here. This is pressed board. This is an MDF, and I got a large sheet of that and then just cut that down. As far as panel is concerned, you can build your own, or you can, Blick does sell something that's just like a cradle panel, something along these lines. That's again homemade for me, but you can buy something that's like a cradle, so it will stick out from the wall. For those, you probably want to have some ground on there. You can clear it, do a clear seal or a white gesso ground. So as you can see, I have a range. I have the range of you know, pre-done, everything's ready to go, you just gotta start painting on it, to something that's gonna need some prep, so that will need to be sealed. If I'm using oils, it's too porous for oils. It's probably a little too porous for acrylic as well, so I put a gesso on there. But you don't always have to use white. You can use clear, you can use black. And again, as you can see here, there's a toned ground. That's earth tone, that's the sienna. And this one, see what I'm grabbing here? That's great. Okay, so you can see large range. And I kind of keep my stack of quick studies, demo canvases, things like that. So none of this has been painted on here. Those are complete works in the plastic. Okay, so let's move over here. I usually pin my canvases to the wall, but with the smaller work, that's not as easy to do. So I have a portable easel here. Again, with teaching, I sometimes bring that with me. I have actually started to use it as a landscape easel. It doesn't do that well in the wind, but it is portable, it collapses. Again, Blick makes those. And I usually have these kind of metal shelves in my studio where I can stack my supplies. As you can see, some paint is down low and painting supplies, as well as I do a little sculpture sometimes for subject matter. And if you're curious about that, let me know and I can talk about that a little bit more, but I use plasticine, or plastilina, I think it's called. Sorry, yeah, plastilina. It's like a sculpey material. And that sometimes is what I'm using for, again, modeling for subject matter. Nova Color, one of my favorite brands of acrylic paint. So for those of you who are acrylic painters, this is something to consider, and feel free to ask me about that as well. Sculpture sand, not using that. Okay, let's move on over to the painting cart. I love these. These are invaluable. If you have a home studio, I highly recommend getting yourself an industrial cart. I take my palette and I place it right into the cart. Okay, so that is a piece of glass. It has a beveled edge. And as you can see, this has been my system for quite some time. I do kind of a table palette. The bigger the better for me, because I just kind of move sections. Very bad at cleaning my palette. As you can see, I'm gonna move this direction real quick. And that's my drawing station. This is gonna be for demos. So I took another piece of glass and I just duct taped it to my table. This is always an option for you, but the thing is that you need to use beveled glass, because if you don't, then you will cut your hands. So this is beveled, that's already kind of, so I can touch it. There's no sharp edges there. If you have something that does have a sharp edge, you have to make sure to sand it, seal it, or at least put duct tape on the edges so you don't cut yourself. Okay, I'll start with the top here. I'm actually gonna go through a paint and then a palette, take a little bit of break and then, or a quick video break, and then I'll move over to brushes. This is oil paint. As you can see, I have a variety of Winton, so this is kind of student grade. Blick, which is, or Utrecht, I'm sorry, that's Utrecht and Blick. Blick are kind of the same at this point. So just, those are, you know, again, nothing on the super high end. I'm trying to think, I might have a few. Winsor Newton would be a higher end. Old Holland would be a higher end. I kind of feel like as you're, you know, in your underpainting layers at least, I don't think you need something overly expensive. It's more for those final layers, color accents. If you want something really rich and beautiful, it is better to buy better paint. But again, I kind of keep a range when it comes to oil paint. Some stuff that's just where I can cover large areas, and then others where I'm painting more details, where the paint is on the pricier side. This over here, so let's talk about mediums. This is linseed oil and stand oil, and those are kind of the only two, as you can see there. And then again, that's a Winsor and Newton brand, to let that kind of not be blurry. Those are the two that I use, and I would actually use Winsor and Newton mediums for most things. You know, sometimes again, I would just need extra linseed oil, so I'll grab Blick. But those are my two mediums. That's pretty much it. And I found over the years that that's kind of all you need with oil paint. I do sometimes use liquid. This would be more if you were into, sorry, I'll hold it there. This would be if you're into portraiture. I find that liquid is good for glazing, skin tones, things like that. If you're a bigger painter, very brushy painter, and like impasto, it doesn't serve any purpose. Impasto is better with stand oil. So that's just an FYI, as well as cold wax medium. Okay, so that's if you're wanting to make a thicker, juicier surface, those are the two things that you want: wax medium and then stand oil, because it's a little thicker. Okay, let's move over to the acrylic side. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but or you might, but you can actually paint oil over acrylic. You can't go the other way around though. So it has to be oil over acrylic, not acrylic over oil. Part of that being because gesso is kind of an acrylic, if you think about it, it's an acrylic base to some degree. And water soluble. So again, what you put over that, you always paint oils over gesso usually. It has a flexible surface. So anyway, I'm rambling a bit, but anyway, you could do oils over acrylic, but not acrylic over oil. I have the tendency to do that. So a lot of times my bases for my paintings are acrylic, and then I paint oils the rest of the way, partially because I like fluorescence, and the fluorescents are better with acrylic than they are with oils. So I let it peek through on the base, and I can show you some of my paintings when I do that. For acrylics, again, I have a range here. Just I use Nova Color a lot, so that comes in quarts and pints. And I have a combination of fluid acrylics, paint sticks. You can get these in oils as well if you want. Again, acrylics can be fun. There's a lot of range with those and real poppy colors. And again, you can do paint, pens, all sorts of stuff. So you can really have a good time with it. The mediums are more expansive with acrylics in my opinion, so you can use anything from sand. Again, you can do this with oils as well, but they're just a little bit more delicate. There's heavy gels that give these kind of like stamp-like or like embossed look, all sorts of things. So I do find if you're somebody who likes to work with texture, acrylics can be a good option for you, or you could just do acrylic base and then oils on top. So again, like you see, black lava. Stuff like this is gonna just show up better with acrylics than it will with oil. Oil tends to be greasy and it will hide a lot of these add-ons. Okay. I'm gonna go down to the bottom of my cart and you're just gonna see what I have here. This is my scraper, my palette knife, and I do sometimes just use that, which is a putty scraper. Just depends on how messy my palette is. For those of you, if you're interested in a portable kit, these are all portable palettes. They come with sponges, and you do have to buy palette paper. As you can see, that's what that is right there, to go over the sponge. This is for acrylic, okay? So this is really helpful if you're an acrylic painter, for you to keep your acrylic paint wet. If you are not an acrylic painter, you're painting with oils, all you need is the oil palette. That's just kind of a waxy feel to it, and that will do you just fine. And then the nice thing about these is the oil paint will stay wet, and then you can put a lid on that and kind of keep your palette. If you mixed your palette, this is a really great way to kind of preserve it, keep it portable. So you, for those of you, if you're coming to class, with, you know, not painting at home, but you're coming to class, this is a really nice way to move your paint back and forth. Okay, I'm gonna take a break for a second and then go into the rest of the supplies. Okay, let's move on to brushes. And again, as you can see, I have two palettes. This is actually my secondary oil palette. See, it's a bit of a mess. I like it, it's cute. I think the smaller square, again, this is big, heavy cart. This is a smaller rolling square. So for those of you who have a home studio, this might be something to think about. I kind of like, this is, I just found the glass as a small half circle shape, you know, half moon shape, and I like it because it gave me a little extra space there where I could put some objects. Well, I have them on the palette now, but the idea is to keep the paint jar here and be able to paint here on a normal day. So this is actually what goes with acrylics. So if you don't have that sponge and that wet palette, You can use this to spray down. I like to have water around because you can spray your paint so it doesn't get crusty. Again, that's for acrylics. For acrylics as well, you always want to have kind of like water jars. I use yogurt containers. Here is, now when I oil paint, I just let those, neighbor dog, sorry. I just let those brushes get dirty, and I'm going to talk about brushes in a second, but I just let them get dirty, and then I get to the sink and I clean it with the Murphy's oil soap and ivory soap. Okay, so I don't clean as I go, or I don't use solvent, because all it does is wear down the bristles, really. What I do instead is I buy a lot of economically priced brushes. I actually do use synthetic with oils. Some people think that's a little crazy, but I do it. They're better for acrylic, but I use them for oils. When I use natural hair or synthetic hair bristles, those ones, so there's natural hair, synthetic, I still buy them on the economic side, or the lower price point, because I like to get a bunch and then throw them out when they're not good anymore. So I'm not very precious when it comes to my brushes. As you can see, they have been used and abused, okay? Newer ones would look like, let me put a sticker here, put that there. Newer ones look like that. Okay, so that's pretty decent, but it's still a bit of a mess. This one, okay, something like that, okay? I just like to, kind of let it go, use a variety of them during a painting session, and then clean it at the end of the day. But all these bristles break down. Even with expensive brushes, they will get tarnished. And so I like to kind of keep it at a, reasonable price point, get a bunch, and then toss them when I'm done. Okay, so there's even some that I'm seeing here that need to be tossed. It's surprising how much the Murphy's oil soap will save your brushes. I mean, I'll probably give these all a soak pretty soon this week, and then, they'll come back, they'll get soft, and a lot of the crusted paint down low will go. But I do recommend kind of going a mid-tier or low-tier brush and then just getting a bunch. As you can see, I have flats, I have brights, there are rounds, a lot of rounds. I use that for drawing because I don't draw with pencil on the canvas. I'll brush everything. Once I'm on the canvas, it's just your brush, you go with that. I have small detail brushes. I have a bit of what is called a big hand. So I do get smaller brushes just so I'm not painting such large strokes are not hard for me. So I have to get some smaller brushes. Oh, Pickles is joining us. Hi, buddy. I get some smaller brushes so I can pay attention to detail, or at least get some of those real sharp lines that I want. Because I'm a relatively aggressive painter. I always keep a bunch of straight edges around, dirty ones, because to give myself some clean lines on my paintings. And I have these weird plastic tools that work for both acrylic and oil. They can just apply paint a little bit differently. The funny story, those are actually, my mom sends me weird kitchen utensils and I use them to paint instead because they make no sense to me in the kitchen. I guess that's for some sort of butter knife thing. I use spatulas. I mix paint with spatulas. So a lot of this stuff, as you can see, that's a spatula. So a lot of this stuff is actually kitchen utensils that I don't want to use in the kitchen, so I use it to paint instead. I'm gonna go down now. It's kind of just a random, I always keep a random basket of stuff. These are kind of good, these little plastic zipper pouches. That's good for portable painting, for those of you who are doing that. Again, more glass jars. I use a lot of pickle jars. Those are good for transporting mediums. As you can see, I have no solvent lying around. Again, I tend to avoid it somewhat. I don't let the terpenoid thing, it still releases fumes. And I find out of all the fumes in my studio, those solvents tend to be the worst. So I kind of avoid them. I have I'm gonna show you, I have the gel, the solvent gel, and I'm gonna show you that. And I do use that, I like it. But the stuff that's more liquid, I just find that it kind of gives me a headache personally. So you see that I don't have a lot of solvent around. And then I'm gonna go down here one more time before I go to my extra box. Down here I keep sandpaper. I do also have painter's tape and masking tape. That is transfer paper. So tracing and transfer paper just depends. I work for my drawings a lot. So sometimes I am transferring, or you can project to transfer. We have a clear sealer. This is acrylic varnish, a matte varnish. I tend to use that more. I don't seal oil paintings as much. Don't. Just depends. Depends if a client asks for it, I'll do it. That's gesso in the back, and then I do use spray paint. Again, spray paint you have to use, if you're gonna use it with oils, you have to use it under oils. That's more oil paint. And again, with the smaller colors, I have some of the fancier brands. I do use Shiva, just if, I don't know if you're familiar with Shiva brand, but that's pretty good. And their mediums are good as well. Where is this? Hold on. So that's that solvent-free gel. Again, I find, especially in a studio situation, I do run an air purifier, but it's just, the solvents are the one thing that just really get me. So I tend to avoid them. I clean my brushes more with linseed oil or the solvent-free gel. And that tends to help a lot. Again, terpenoid, it doesn't have an odor. So odorless mineral spirits, they still have fumes, although you're not smelling them. So I think that's partially for any of you, if you find yourself sensitive to that, you might want to switch to something like this because that might help you. Again, that's only for oils. Acrylic is water soluble. Okay, I'm going to turn this around and say bye, and there will be some other videos today that deal with viewfinders as well as still life setup and painting. So look for those as well. So thanks for joining me on my studio tour, and I always just love sharing my space with new students, new colleagues, new artists. There will be some more videos soon. There will be a kind of a handout that shows the viewfinder setup that I'm using, and you'll see it when I'm using it to deal with still life. The next instructional demo will go over the still life setup and then the first pass, about second pass of paintings. I kind of do that within the same time frame. For intermediate still life, it would be kind of a straightforward setup. For advanced, it's going to be more complex with more color accent, variable surfaces, from shiny surface to texture surface. One of those things is you're moving through that skill set. It's something kind of, still life is a lifelong learning situation. We all have our feelings about it. But what you're trying to gain is more proficiency, quickness, immediacy, changing focal points, dealing with varied surfaces. Again, not everything needs to be one-to-one or looking like a photo, or it's all still going to be interpretation. It's still brushstroke, interpretation of color. But yes, look for those instructional videos coming soon, very soon, within the day or within the week. And that is all for now. You can also, I'm going to link the syllabus below this video so that you can see the supply kit written out. Again, compare and contrast from what you already have to what's in the syllabus to what I talked about. You can also feel free to write in the comments and ask any questions right here on the YouTube channel. And I get notifications and I can check that as well. Okay, that is all for now. I will see you soon.